Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Americans reportedly being held hostage at an airport in Afghanistan. That's according to a top Republican lawmaker. What does the Taliban want? The Taliban are claiming control over the last province holding out against the militants' advances. But the resistance group denies some of their claims. They say the Taliban is spreading propaganda. Mexican forces break up a migrant caravan of about 400 people, several of them now arrested. That's after the Mexican president said he wants migrants to stay in southern Mexico. And dancers took to the stage this weekend to shine a light on classical Chinese dance. Performers from 2 divisions showcased jumps, tumbles, and other traditional techniques for a cheering crowd, all part of NTD's 9th International Dance Competition. A top Republican lawmaker says the Taliban is holding Americans hostage at an airport in Afghanistan. NTD's Jessica Beatty has more.
The top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee says some Americans who have been trying to get out of Afghanistan are sitting in airplanes at an airport ready to leave, but the Taliban are not letting them take off.
And in fact, we have 6 airplanes at Mazar Sharif Airport, 6 airplanes with American citizens on them as I speak, also with these interpreters, and the Taliban is holding them hostage for demands.
Representative Michael McCaul told Fox News Sunday that the Taliban wants something in exchange, and he's concerned the Taliban will demand more and more, whether it be cash or legitimacy.
This is really, Chris, turning into a hostage situation where they're not going to allow American citizens to leave until they get full recognition from the United States of America.
NTD reached out to the State Department regarding McCaul's comments, but an automated message said staff won't be back until Tuesday due to Labor Day. White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain told CNN Sunday that about 100 Americans are still in Afghanistan.
We're hopeful that in the coming days, the Qataris will be able to resume air service out of Kabul. And if they do, we're obviously going to look to see if Americans can be part of those flights.
One pregnant American who's stuck in Afghanistan told Voice of America last week that the Taliban are hunting Americans now that there's no U.S. military presence. 25-year-old Nazria said, apparently they're going door to door trying to see if anybody has a blue passport. The Biden administration has said no more than 200 Americans were left behind. But Republican lawmaker Darrell Issa has said he thinks the number is closer to 500, and it could be up to 1,000 if you count all the family members. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for Qatar and Europe Sunday, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also left Sunday to travel to the Gulf separately to meet key allies. Together, their trips are meant to reassure Gulf allies that the U.S. isn't abandoning its partners in the Middle East. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The Taliban claims to have control over the last remaining opposition stronghold in Afghanistan. But a resistance group in the area says that's not true, and that they have even captured some Taliban. The Taliban said they are present in the Panjshir province, and it's completely under their control. That's where opposition groups have been holding out since Kabul fell to the Taliban about 3 weeks ago. A member of the militant group says the opposition suffered a lot of damage, whereas the Taliban did not.
After 2 days, the government of the Panjshir province is under the control of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Our flag is also raised in the capital of Panjshir province.
Resistance forces in the Panjshir Valley say the Taliban is spreading propaganda and disinformation. It comes after the Taliban said they captured the police headquarters near the province's capital, Bazarak. A Taliban spokesperson said the opposition groups have suffered significant casualties and a large number of their prisoners and weapons have been captured. But on the contrary, the resistance says they've captured hundreds of Taliban, and they say they're ready to continue their defense against any form of aggression. The opposition leader says he is ready to engage in talks to stop the war immediately and achieve stable peace. This while Afghan women led protests in Kabul, saying their only goal is to keep the rights they had before the Taliban takeover.
We just want the same rights as men, or the same concessions that we had under the government of Ashraf Ghani. We want to have rights under the Taliban government also, if not 100%, if not 80%, then at least 50% should be given to us.
What's more, Top General Mark Milley told Fox News he suspects that the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan will spark a civil war.
And that will then in turn lead to conditions that could, in fact, lead to a reconstitution of Al-Qaeda or a growth of ISIS or other myriad of terrorist groups.
Milley thanked the troops for their efforts during the Afghanistan evacuation and said they paid a high price with the suicide bombing that killed 13 service members.
Shows enormous courage, discipline, and capability, working together. It's something that we should always be proud of.
The U.S. had evacuated over 50,000 people from Afghanistan to Qatar, and now General Milley says most of them have been moved to the U.S. or to Europe, where they are being processed. Pakistan says at least 3 paramilitary soldiers are dead and about 20 are wounded after a suicide attack in the southwest of the nation. It adds to an increasing number in attacks on security forces in Pakistan over the last month.
The explosion occurred as a checkpoint security detail was being relieved, the country's interior minister told a press conference. He added that some 20 members of the Frontier Constabulary were also wounded. The attack took place in Quetta, the capital of the southwestern Pakistani province of Balochistan, around 60 miles east of Afghanistan. A senior member of the local police said a suicide bomber on a motorcycle packed with 13 pounds of explosives rammed a vehicle in an FC convoy. Islamist militant organisation Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan has claimed responsibility for the attack. The TTP, though separate from the Afghan Taliban, has renewed its allegiance to that group after the fall of Kabul last month and has recently stepped up its campaign against the Pakistani army. The South Asian nation has seen a spike in attacks on security forces in recent weeks as neighbouring Afghanistan fell to the Taliban. The Afghan Taliban have sought to reassure their neighbour that they will not allow their territory to be used by anyone planning attacks on Pakistan or any other country.
The Taliban has reportedly chosen one of its co-founders to lead a new Afghan government. Sources inside the group told Reuters his name is Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar. Let's take a look at his personal history and that of others who are expected to form the new administration.
Abdul Ghani Baradar is one of the co-founders of the Taliban and was a close friend of the Taliban's first leader, Mullah Muhammad Omar. It was Omar that gave him the nom de guerre of Baradar, which means brother. He was deputy defense minister during the first Taliban government. He was responsible for attacks on coalition forces, according to the UN, and served 8 years in a Pakistani prison. Baradar will be joined by Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanekzai, who was his deputy. Stanekzai has been one of the group's most public faces. He was once a deputy foreign minister for the group. He's a fluent English speaker, graduated as a military cadet in India in the 1980s, and fought in the Afghan-Soviet War. The Taliban's supreme religious leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada, will continue to focus on religious matters and governance within the Taliban's interpretation of Islam. Akhundzada was a legal scholar with a low profile until his predecessor was killed in a U.S. drone strike 5 years ago. After he took over, he tried to unify the movement's several factions and stop defections to groups like Islamic State. The United Nations says that Akhundzada also served in the first Taliban government in the 90s as the head of its hardline justice system. The Taliban have previously said that they want to form a consensus government, but a Reuters source close to the militants says that, for now, the interim government will consist solely of Taliban members. Within 6 to 8 months, they plan to form a representative assembly and also discuss a constitution. Western powers and others have said that formal recognition of a Taliban government will depend on its actions. Russia considers the Taliban to be a terrorist group.
Soldiers who staged an uprising in Guinea's capital on Sunday said in a short broadcast on state television that they have dissolved the constitution and the government in the West African state, while videos shared on social media showed the country's president, Alpha Condé, being detained by Army Special Forces.
One unidentified soldier, draped in Guinea's national flag, said the group planned to form a transitional government and that further details would be given later. Meanwhile, videos appearing to show the country's president, Alpha Condé, being detained by Army Special Forces circulated on social media. Reuters could not immediately authenticate the footage, but it was posted just hours after heavy gunfire broke out near the presidential palace in Conakry. Several sources have claimed an elite National Army unit led by a former French legionnaire, Mamadi Doumbouya, was behind the unrest.
We have decided, after taking the president, who is with us now, to dissolve the current constitution. We also decided to dissolve the government, to close the land and air borders. We call on our brothers in arms to unite in order to respond to the legitimate aspirations of the people of Guinea.
Right now, though, it's not immediately clear who holds power. The Guinean Defence Ministry said the attack on the palace by mutinous forces and an attempted insurgency had been put down. Earlier, videos shared on social media showed military vehicles patrolling Conakry's streets. One military source said the only bridge connecting the mainland to the Khartoum neighbourhood, which houses the palace and most government ministries, had been sealed off.
Mexican officials are trying to stem the flow of migrants into the U.S. along its border. The latest, a caravan of about 400 people, some of whom are now detained in Mexico. Here's more.
Mexican forces cut off a new migrant caravan bound for the U.S. on Sunday, breaking up the main group near the southern town of Huixla and detaining several people. Before dawn, agents with riot shields and batons bore down on the group of around 400 people coming from Central America, Haiti and Venezuela and surrounding them on the edge of town. Hundreds of migrants, many accompanied by children or carrying babies in their arms, fled for the banks of the river Huixla. As dawn came, some stragglers continued to resist against authorities. The Mexican National Guard and the National Institute of Migration have been accused of using excessive force in their intervention. The Mexican government recently condemned acts of violence captured on video against a previous caravan. Mexican authorities ramped up crackdowns on caravans after President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said he wanted undocumented migrants to stay in southern Mexico.
The German ambassador to China died less than 2 weeks after arriving in China, and the German chancellor issued a statement expressing her condolences. Jan Hecker was a foreign policy advisor to Chancellor Angela Merkel before his appointment as ambassador to China. The German foreign minister told media the death is unrelated to Hecker's role as ambassador. Hecker and his family arrived in China, and he submitted credentials to the Chinese Foreign Ministry on August 24th. He officially started working at the end of August. He got to know Merkel after joining a team under her administration that worked on refugee policy. He became closer to Merkel in 2017 after he was made head of the Foreign Security and Development Policy Department. The role put him together with Merkel on her travels. He leaves behind a wife and 3 children. Another tragedy on American soil, a mass shooting in Florida. A sheriff there has identified a man suspected of committing the atrocity.
In the main house, we discovered a man, a woman, and an infant in the mother's arms, all shot to death.
The Polk County Sheriff says suspect 33-year-old Brian
the
Riley
house directly by
is now in custody. The only survivor is an 11-year-old girl who's suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was airlifted to Tampa General Hospital for surgery. Investigators say Riley is an ex-Marine. He had been honorably discharged and had no known connection to his victims. Riley surrendered after being wounded by deputies and was taken into custody. Officers say once he arrived at the hospital, Riley tried unsuccessfully to grab an officer's gun. The names of the 5 victims of the mass shooting have not been released. Riley faces 4 counts of first-degree murder. U.S. Navy officials are identifying the 5 service members who died in a helicopter crash off the California coast. The 5 sailors were declared dead Saturday following the crash near San Diego, about 50 miles off the coast. It happened during a routine flight operation Tuesday. Sunday, the Navy identified those killed as Lieutenant Bradley Foster, Lieutenant Paul Fridley, Naval Air Crewman 2nd Class James Burriak, Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class Sarah Burns, and Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Bailey Tucker. Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Mike Gilday said, quote, "We stand alongside their families, loved ones, and shipmates who grieve." One crew member survived the crash and was rescued. The helicopter was based on the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. The Navy said the incident is under investigation. Divers searching for the source of an ongoing oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico have identified a broken pipeline that came loose from a trench on the ocean floor. The spill appeared after Hurricane Ida passed through. Talos Energy, out of Houston, is paying for the cleanup, but says the burst pipeline does not belong to them. The Associated Press reports divers also discovered 2 additional pipelines in the area that are open and apparently abandoned. Satellite images reviewed by AP appear to show at least 3 different oil slicks in the same area. Talos said the rate of oil appearing on the surface slowed dramatically in the last 48 hours. So far, the spill appears to have remained away from the coastline and has not affected the Louisiana shoreline. There's not yet any estimate for how much oil is still in the water, but the Coast Guard says 42 gallons have been removed so far. New York firefighters performed an extraordinary rescue after a man fell 30 feet down a storm drain. The fire department was able to get to the scene near Cross Island Parkway and Whitestone Expressway within 3 minutes of the emergency call.
I'm very happy to report that the victim that was removed suffered none life-threatening injuries, and that was at New York Presbyterian Hospital.
The man was rescued when a firefighter used a ladder to go down into the storm drain and was able to hoist him out of danger. It's not clear yet if the accident was related to the storm damage sustained in the city. The incident and the circumstances by which the victim fell in the hole are still under investigation. President Biden declares New Jersey a major disaster area days after Hurricane Ida caused intense flooding, killing dozens in the Northeast. Biden ordered federal aid to supplement local recovery efforts in the areas affected by the remnants of Hurricane Ida that swept through from September 1st to September 3rd. Biden will travel to Manville, New Jersey, and to New York City borough of Queens on Tuesday to assess the damage. In New Jersey, there were at least 27 confirmed storm deaths and 4 people missing. The New York governor requested Biden issue a major disaster declaration for her state, too. Ida is one of the most powerful hurricanes to ever strike the U.S. Gulf Coast. It hit Louisiana about a week ago before moving northeast and causing intense flooding. Ohio's Secretary of State confirms the county elections boards started removing inactive voters and those who have moved out of the state from voter rolls. The process takes place in the state every 4 years. It purges names of people from voting lists who have not voted for 2 years or whose addresses may have changed. A news release says there are steps inactive voters can take to keep themselves on the rolls. They basically need to participate in the voting or voting registration process. The release says if no action is taken, the names could be purged in 2026. In the same news release, the Ohio Secretary of State called for passage of the GOP-backed voting integrity bill to modernize the state's election system. American tennis player Sloane Stephens says she's feeling exhausted by a flood of abusive messages she received after losing the 3rd round of the U.S. Open. Stephens says she received more than 2,000 abusive online messages after her loss. The 2017 champion shared on her Instagram Saturday. Stephens said, "It's so hard to read messages like these, but I'll post a few so you guys can see what it's like after a loss." What followed was a series of messages aimed at the 28-year-old's race and sex. She added, "This type of hate is so exhausting and never-ending. This isn't talked about enough. I chose to show you guys happiness out here, but it's not always smiles and roses." Stephens also posted supportive messages she received from her team. She ranked as world number 3 in 2018. The Women's Tennis Association did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but Stephens says she is looking forward to finishing the season.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
NTD's 9th International Classical Chinese Dance Competition saw over 100 contestants from all over the world, all taking the stage in New York. After 4 days of competition, 12 of them took home the gold. Let's take a look at the highlights.
Before Sunday evening's award ceremony, gold medalists from previous years showcased some of the best techniques in classical Chinese dance. Strings of difficult jumps and tumbles from male dancers won rounds of applause, while the female dancers' graceful movements presented the elegance and gentleness of ancient Chinese women. This year, 12 contestants from the junior and adult divisions were honored with the top award. The competition aims to promote authentic Chinese culture, traditions that have nearly been lost, destroyed by the Chinese Communist Party over the past several decades.
Well, I think it's really just about learning from others and learning what other people have to teach you.
I'm really happy. I think it's an encouragement for me to continue the path of dancing. Now I know my direction better. I hope in the future I can bring to the audience more works that can inspire the goodness in them and that conveys beautiful messages.
This year's gold medalist also brought a special dance component to the stage, a long-lost dance technique known as the body leads the hands and the hips leads the legs. The method teaches dancers that the power behind their movements comes from the center of the body.
I feel like there's actually so much behind it, and the more you go into it, the more interesting it gets. And then it just adds so much to your dance that gives it a whole, it's like a different world from regular dance.
On stage, the dancers portrayed some of the best-known figures in Chinese history, from talented scholars to loyal generals to great beauties in ancient China, presenting a concise version of the country's 5,000 years of civilization. The competition aims to foster cultural exchange and promote purely authentic traditional dance, bringing its purity and goodness to light. Many contestants came to the competition with the same aspiration.
I hope to bring the most traditional Chinese classical dance to the world so that people around the world will know that classical dance is really good.
What comes with winning gold is the responsibility to do better and to bring the highest art form I can to bring back this lost heritage to more people around the world.
The contestants say they will continue pursuing new heights in their training to reach new levels in their artistic journeys. NTD News, New York.
Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com